that, just like 10 times in a row. He just sang that the whole time.
Who did?
There's some guy on the radio in a song.
And there's more assholes on the radio these days. It's amazing, man. I turn on the radio and I feel like just shooting it.
Yeah.
I think they're just trying to be clever, but it's just really, really
Backfires.
stupid. It's really stupid.
Hell, in a few years ago, whoa.
I know,
That was
it's really stupid.
Stuff like that
Why
does
did I
not
do that?
age well.
I think a lot of bands, without knowing it, kind of dig themselves too much of a rut. They're just a little afraid to expand or to take a step forward. I don't think we've ever been afraid of that.
There's a certain dynamic between the four of us that seems to, like, keep the spark alive.
The thing that has kept Metallica going so long, and it's kind of been our secret. I mean, it's how, you know, everybody's always wants to be there for the other three guys. Nobody ever wants to let the other three guys down.
We get older, and that's okay. We change, and that's okay, as long as it's natural.
Metallica has always been the thinking dudes metal band, punky but intricate too. Early Metallica tracks, in fact, were so fiendishly multi-metered the guys themselves could barely keep up in concert. But that's history.
This song's real raw in terms of it just has like two guitars, drums and bass, a couple of vocal effects and stuff like that.
Whereas the rest of the album ranges over many stylistic strategies, right?
Stylistic strategy. I like that one. That's a pretty good one.
Well put there, Kurt.
It's like
In other words, it's a complete mess.
With its last album still on the Billboard Top 100 chart 5 years after its release, Metallica has stripped its surefire sound way down for an unusual new album called Load.
There was no big plan in the end on how they were all supposed to sound, so we just concentrated song by song and just let them go.
Every song evokes a certain type of mood. It's not, you know, consistently just like pounding heavy metal thunder all the way.
James, Kurt.
No, even at me? Oh, man. This is an old band. We're taking precedent here. Lars is listening to all of us at once.
I think the one thing we had to do was just be looser, be more, go for attitude, go for vibe, and go for something that was more of a band sound. I think listening to some of the earlier records, it definitely sounds like the Ulrich Hetfield experience.
The Hetfield-Ulrich experience began in Los Angeles in 1981, a time when glam was king, or queen, and two young locals found themselves united in dismay, angry young singer James Hetfield and transplanted Danish drummer Lars Ulrich.
I came from Europe. I was listening to a lot of the European stuff that was going on at the time. I landed in the land of REO Speedwagon and Sticks and Kansas, and I'm just going like, ah!
We loved punk music, and it just didn't have enough musicianship to it, so we basically added some.
Hetfield and Ulrich hooked up with Dave Mustaine, a speed demon guitarist with a major mouth, and brought in bassist Ron McGovney to form the maiden lineup of Metallica in October 1981.
People came to our gigs not knowing what they were expecting. They'd come to that club no matter what, just to hang with their friends and see who's, you know, looking prettier, you know, that night. And we got very annoyed with that, and we'd sing louder and play faster, and that's kind of how I think it helped develop our style.
So Metallica was working, but something was lacking in the band's lineup, and while watching another group at the famous Whiskey one night, they discovered what it was: bassist Cliff Burton.
So we saw this big mop going, and, you know, we had this wah going, and fingers and hair were flying, and we just thought that was so cool and so unique, and we had to have the guy.
He really had been studying music at a college up in San Francisco and stuff, and really started introducing James and me to things like harmonies and melodies and stuff like that.
My name is Donna Davis, and I'm here with Metallica, the hot new heavy metal band from LA. And let's have them start with their name and what they do in the band. And let's start with you.
James Hetfield, rhythm guitar and vocals.
Lars Ulrich, drums and punk.
Dave Mustaine, lead guitar. Cliff Burton, bass guitar.
By this point, Dave Mustaine's enthusiasm for cocktails was driving his bandmates nuts. So after securing a record deal and heading for New York to make their first album with metal promoter Johnny Z, they decided to take action.
As soon as we got to New York, it's like, hi, Johnny Z, or, we're Metallica, and what kind of sack our lead guitar player? Whoa,
In giving Dave Mustaine the axe, Hetfield and Ulrich were, shall we say, unhampered by sentiment.
We had booked him a bus ticket like 10 in the morning, and like at 9:15 or something, it's like, Dave, wake up, we gotta talk. And so basically we woke him up, and he was still sort of rubbing, sleep out of his eyes. Dave, you gotta go home. And then
And you gotta go on a bus.
Well, yeah, Dave, you gotta go home. And then the infamous, this lingers, this is like famous, this question. He goes, when does my plane leave? And Dave, well, here's part 2 of the bad news. So basically, you just got fired, and you have 4 days on a Greyhound bus clear across America to sit and revel in that.
I initially got the call on April Fool's Day, so that was an April Fool's Day joke. I was on the can.
About midnight, Kurt shows up, and he sets up his equipment.
This is actually the first time I'd ever been out of California.
Really?
Yeah. I was scared first. And it's like New York. It's like, wow, this place is really big and dirty.
The first song we played was Seek and Destroy, and we got to the guitar solo, and 10 seconds into it, me and James just looked at each other, and that was it. Done. End of story.
So we're looking at.
It's all down to him if we're going to know.
Lyrics are the bottleneck of the whole album. Really
On the way to somewhere is always the best time you come up with lyrics. So, like a paper right there, ready to write away, and a little pen handy right there, going back and forth to Lars's and I'd be late going there, stop at Wendy's, I'd be eating a burger, talking on the phone, and writing down lyrics.
What's on your mind writing-wise these days? What are the themes of some of these songs?
Themes lyrically?
Yeah.
Vagueness. I don't want to really give any preconceptions, but it's more deep, personal stuff. I had to kind of go visit some kind of messed up places within where I thought, well, I'm all better now. I don't have to write that kind of crap anymore. But I mean, once you're messed up, you're,
A lot of those old records were so thematic, and there was all these visuals and all these major, almost, just messages and all this kind of heavy-duty political stuff. And we really got kind of bored with that. And I think at the same time, James felt more comfortable opening up and letting some of his really innermost bizarre stuff out.
I just wish that people would just like go past, what they think Metallica is about, heavy metal, thunder and lightning, Satan, and listen to the music.
There was always in harder rock kind of a thing about you could never stray. We've always strayed and all over the place.
Metallica started straying on its second album, Ride the Lightning. The band had signed with new management and a new major label, and it wasn't about to start bowing down before the usual hard and fast metal stereotypes.
In 1984, when we put a ballad, Fade to Black, on our second record, people were freaking, okay? And we just said, right there, this is how it's going to be. There are no parameters that keep us in.
Releasing its third album, Master of Puppets, in 1986, Metallica embarked on a career-changing tour with metal god Ozzy Osbourne. The Puppets album rose to number 29 on the Billboard chart, and with this success, the band soon found itself answering to the inevitable charge of selling out.
We do what we want to do, If they consider that selling out, then whatever.
Metallica's success was unique in that rock radio gave the group zip in the way of airplay.
Radio didn't want us, and it was, we kept, sending them tapes.
As for the hot new promotional medium of music video, well, Metallica dismissed it as lame.
You had these guys playing, and then they have all these girls in bikinis, you know, prancing all around. That became like a rock standard for a while, and we didn't want anything to do with that.
Metallica was also fighting the popular image of metal itself, of a dark cult genre devoted to death and Satanism, music for losers.
Hey, one more thing about Metallica, I'm gonna slam you in the nads.
Yeah. Go on with your bad self, Beavis.
As with many stereotypes, this one was highly misleading, as is demonstrated in the recent film Paradise Lost, the true story of 3 Arkansas metal fans accused of ritually murdering 3 young boys.
Initially, we wanted to look at this case because it was about 3 teenagers who listened to heavy metal music, who wore black, who were into satanic ritual, who allegedly had killed these 3 kids. As we started uncovering the layers, we realized that the kids, in fact, may be innocent, and that the fact that they listened to heavy metal music down in a Bible-thumping area of the country made them automatic targets for a police department that was under a lot of pressure to solve the crime.
Anything wrong with wearing black in and of itself? No. Anything wrong with the heavy metal stuff in and of itself? No. The Book of Shadows, anything wrong with that in and of itself? No. But when you look at it together and you begin to see inside Damien Eccles, you see inside that person, and you look inside there and there's not a soul in there.
Impressed by the thrust of Paradise Lost, Metallica for the first time allowed its music to be used in a movie. After all, the band itself, while famously close to its fans, had been accused of encouraging teen suicide with its ballad Fade to Black, even though many young listeners said the song had helped them through dark times.
Once you start worrying about what other people are going to do if you do something, and what ifs, all these what ifs they mess with you inside, and you can't really be honest with yourself. So it's not a great thing when it happens, but I don't know if we're the cause of it.
A ton of bad luck struck Metallica itself on September 27, 1986. While touring Europe, the band's bus skidded off an icy road, and bassist Cliff Burton was killed.
Did the band think at any time like maybe we should take 6 months off?
No. We knew that if we did that, we'd probably start wallowing in our grief and depression. So we unanimously decided that we should just keep on working.
Double-edged sword of that was that it was like whoever we got in the band would be at the receiving end of torment and torture and for years to come, just because he was the replacement for Cliff.
That lucky man turned out to be Metallica fan Jason Newsted, plucked from the lineup of a Phoenix band called Flotsam and Jetsam.
Hey, let's go.
Because he was in the mix now, he thinks we have to wait for him. Good. Okay, guys. Good bag.
Looking back on it, the first couple of years were rough. Actually, the first couple of years and couple of years were pretty rough.
When they wanted to be ugly, they were ugly, and didn't really, that was just that.
You didn't beat him up or anything, did you?
No, we didn't beat him up. Well, mentally we beat him up. But, I mean, come on, he walked off the street into a dream situation, so we had to let him know that it's not this easy, brother.
I had to really keep a straight head professional. I really had to see further. I had to look beyond all these kind of things, these bumps and these curves and obstacles. I really had to look beyond that. There's a lot of them in the beginning.
It's come a long way, and I think in a bizarre way, this is the most we've ever been a band right now.
What is democracy?
It's got something to do with young men killing each other, I believe.
In 1988, Metallica released a new album, And Justice for All, mounted a worldwide tour, and finally came up with a video concept they liked. The story of a young man who goes off to war and comes back a vegetable.
I can remember sitting on the couch, and one would come on, and then afterwards, a DJ will say, well, on a lighter note, we have... and I knew we had touched a chord.
And Justice for All was nominated for a Grammy Award, although it famously lost out to Jethro Tull of all acts. But the critical tide was turning, as even New York Times writers began hailing Metallica's complex arrangements and pointed lyrics.
Hey, look. We're in Rolling Stone. Isn't that exciting? See? We made it into Rolling Stone. We peaked. It can only go down from here.
In 1990, gearing up to record its 5th album, Metallica finally found a producer the band would come to value highly, veteran studio whiz Bob Rock.
One of the first things Bob Rock ever said to me when I met him 5 or 6 years ago in Vancouver was, you guys have never made a record that sounds like you sound when you play live.
Let's don't do a yeah. A yeah at the end. Do something else. Womo.
Right.
Okay.
Child. Fire woman.
Something's wrong, something like heavy thoughts tonight, ain't the honest way.
I think we kind of all fessed up to the fact that we just needed to bring somebody else into our tightly knit organization and work with us in the studio.
The typical Bob Rock scenario is me showing up and playing guitar, him looking at me and saying, "Come on, man." And I'll look at him and say, "What?" And he goes, "You're much better than that. Come on. You don't want to put that on an album."
Remember what I said about guitar players that don't do their homework? Remember that.
Hey, man, I do my homework. I do, man. It just doesn't work.
The resulting record, officially called Metallica, unofficially the Black Album, was unveiled at a fan listening party at New York's Madison Square Garden. And it was a smash, going to #1 and finally winning a Grammy Award for Best Metal Album.
Let's see, I think the first thing we got to do is, obviously, like you guys were expecting, is we got to thank Jethro Tull for not putting out an album this year, right?
I knew we had a really good record, and I knew that it was going to do well. I would never in a zillion years think that 5 years later it's still hovering in the top 100 and selling, you know, whatever X thousand copies of it. I mean, who just bought the Black Album last week?
The longevity, that's cooler to me than being on top for 5 minutes, really hanging out and still being relevant, and for some reason people are still buying the damn thing.
The unending popularity of the Black Album wound up keeping Metallica on the road for 2 whole grueling years.
Hey, I'm your life, I'm the one who takes you there. Hey, I'm your life, I'm the one who cares.
If you at gunpoint forced me to name one gig that stands out, I'd probably say the gig we did in Moscow in 1991. This was just elevated one step more than anything I've ever seen of us, and working with an audience, and it was that whole experience was truly amazing.
After cranking out some 400 shows, the members of Metallica decided to take a whole year apart from each other before starting work on Load.
The sound on this record seems to indicate sort of a happier group. Do you feel happier than you were 15 years ago?
I don't know about happier.
Less unhappy.
Maybe.
Has the songwriting process changed?
The actual songwriting process hasn't changed that much. It's still me and James who sit with the material. It's still me and James who put the songs together, the basic arrangements, everything like that. I think this time around we ended up using more stuff of Kirk's.
All the white stones and rose like Georgia cotton.
Let's play Guess Who's Not in the Room.
Bob!
Producer Bob Rock was back on board for Load, of course, and Metallica itself was a changed band, rested, mature, and operating now with a new, more democratic spirit.
just like a band, you know? This is very weird, you know? Lars and I back off a little and let them take a little control, you know, over their own, you know, parts.
They kind of let down the guard a little bit and maybe let a little bit more responsibility go to the other cats in the band, Kirk and myself, and let us be able to, you know, voice our opinions and really show our stuff this time.
I mean, we're really doing everything backwards. Do you know, I mean, most people they start as a band and then a couple guys take over and then everybody blows up. But we kind of, you know, started with a couple of guys running the show and then it becomes a band and now it's like a tighter thing than it's ever been before. It's kind of weird.
Not only is Load a major stylistic step for Metallica, but so is the band's choice of a venue to promote it as headliners on the earnestly alternative Lollapalooza tour.
We're going to reach a lot of folks that we didn't before and gain some respect from some people that we didn't before. And we're real happy with the songs. We're real proud of them. And that's going to make a big dent in a lot of people that maybe had their doubts, and that makes me happy too.
Musically, I think we're in a position right now where we could go anywhere and people would not necessarily maybe like it, but at least respect it. And I think that that's important. And at least understand that we have a desire to keep pushing the boundaries, and the only thing that will limit us will be our own imaginations.